Hello and welcome to IMA's Inside Talk webinar series. The title of today's presentation is the FP&A skill set of the future, AI, analytics, and more, sponsored by Jedox. I'm Adam Larson and I'll be your host for today's webinar. So at this time, I would like to introduce our featured presenters for today's program. With us today, we have Tim Caudill. Tim, with 2 decades of domain expertise, Tim brings a unique view of finance organizations about what is practical, important, and achievable. Tim, it's great to have you with us.
Hey, great to be here. Thank you.
So next, I'd like to introduce our second featured presenter for today's program. With us today, we have Dr. Björn Schmidt. For over 10 years, Björn has helped propel companies in technology and SaaS to both imagine and achieve their full potential. To learn more about both of our presenters, please take a look at the speaker bio section of your console. It's great to have you with us today, Björn.
Thanks for having me.
So we're looking forward to a very informative presentation. And with that, I'll turn things over to Tim.
All right, thank you. And thank everyone for joining. Really appreciate you being here and hope you find our chat today thought-provoking or at least confirming of some things that you're seeing in your day-to-day. Just a note about who we are. Jedox provides the world's most adaptable planning and performance platform. And so there's a team of over 500 folks here. And for the last 20 years, we wake up every day helping folks like you deal with topics like we're going to talk about today. Automation, planning better and faster, implementing new technologies like AI. And so that's where we're coming from. And a lot of what we're going to talk about today was gleaned from talking to people in the field and in our day-to-day work, working with folks just like yourself. From an agenda standpoint today, we're going to talk about what the top performing FP&A organization looks like, and through that understand some of the emerging skills in our space that are necessary to support that top tier organization, and then also how to underpin those skills with the best new technologies and how to leverage them and what to think about as you are creating a technology landscape. And then we're just going to talk about some tips and techniques to create a framework to keep performing at that level, an evergreen FP&A organization, something that is continually going to strive to be at the top of the heap. But before we get too far, we're going to spring our first poll question on you right out of the bat. So this poll question is, what improvements would you like your organization to focus on in 2024? More business partnering, tools and technology investments, or employee skills and training? And so we'll give you guys a few minutes to respond to that. It'll be interesting to see who wants to buy some new tools and technology or fun toys, as we sometimes refer to them. Who's looking to up their skills and who wants to get out there in the business more. So interesting to see where everybody lands there. All right, just a few more seconds here. As people are submitting, we're about 80%. We give another 30 seconds or so. All right. That should just about do it. So Björn, let's check out these results. Looks like I kind of had a feeling a lot of people are looking for some tools. Does that resonate with you, Björn? It was what you expected?
Yeah, I mean, tools and technology, I guess, are the basis, if you like. Of course, without technology, without tools, like business partnering, without it business partnering is pretty difficult. So, but still, I mean, it looks like not evenly split, but let's say business partnering and employee skills, I mean, they are super important too. So
yep,
it's a strong result here.
Kind of bears that out. I think that this matches, these are all important. And we're going to talk about that as we move forward. So, you know, when we think about top performing FP&A departments or organizations, there's an evolution that's been happening, and it's a move from a cost center or a back office function to being much more value creative. And we see that only continuing over time. Basically, if you look at that stat at the bottom, only 12.5% of organizations spend more than 40% of their time on high value activities. And so the goal is to leverage that huge percentage of time that's available to be more value additive. And one of the ways that we can do that is to extend finance to be more of a cross-functional partner, to help create and align strategic financial and operational plans, and help drive digital transformation. And what we mean here is using techniques and some of the things that we're going to talk about today to up our game, to add more value. And it's really all about being a value creator. So what are some traits of FP&A organizations that are doing this well? So as we're out there in working with folks like yourselves, the things that we see in the top FP&A organizations are high levels of automation. That stat, that 40% of value add is all they provide. I think a lot of that comes from lots of manual activities, cranking out lots of spreadsheets over and over again. There's a lot of things that happen in finance organizations that are ripe for automation. And when you take advantage of automation, you can really supercharge what you're able to provide. They're very consultative to the business. We spoke about that just a moment ago. It's no longer okay to just serve the finance function or just do the reporting out to the street. We need to really help people make business decisions, but also data-driven business decisions to help provide meaningful analytics and things to help coordinate. And if you think about where the finance function sits, it's on top of a ton of streams of activities and data that eventually bubble up into the financial statements. And so we have like a unique position to see the big picture and help in lots of interesting ways by bringing some analytical skills, but also some business acumen into the way that we help the folks in the organization. Top organizations can forecast quickly, and some are even doing some sort of continuous forecasting. So basically think about something that's running with AI that gives you an alert that something's changing both either internally or externally, and being able to react almost instantaneously, or at least get a plan quickly so that you can move faster. One thing that I hear from people is, our bosses want us to plan more. Our forecasts need to be more accurate. And so top organizations are able to do that. And again, that speaks back to automation. And when you automate these processes like planning, forecasting, reporting, it allows you to plan a little deeper, but also plan in more scenarios. So the idea of scenario planning and sensitivity analysis is something that top organizations take very seriously, because as you probably experienced, the world we live in is pretty chaotic. And so we feel like we can see not as far into the future as maybe we could a year or 3 ago. And so we need to have lots of scenario plans to have plan A, B, and C to react quickly. And then also a robust framework for improvement. A top FP&A organization won't stay that way very long if it doesn't change. We need to constantly change and improve. And we think of it in 3 pillars at Jedox: automate, collaborate, and transform. So we want to take those manual tasks and automate them. We want to bring more people into the planning, into the reporting analytics process with collaboration, and then also use all of these things to transform our organization, drive digital transformation, be faster, be more efficient. Now, I'd love to get Björn's thoughts as he talks to some of his peers in the CFO community, if this resonates with some conversations and things that he's been having. So Björn, what do you think about that?
Yeah, and thanks so much. And this sums it up very well in terms of traits of top FP&A organizations. And that's what I and my team are working on every single day in finance at Jedox. And what I've been seeing as well at Jedox and previous companies in investment banking, supporting FP&A functions of clients, is that, automation definitely, provides us efficiency. It allows us to be more effective, to be faster, again, to also save some money, obviously. But what's also very important to me is that automation provides or is a source of motivation to a lot of people in the FP&A function. As he said, in the old days, basically, some of the finance activities have been, let's say, mundane at best. I truly believe, and I've been seeing that, and I, personally, I'm getting motivation out of automated processes and not having to work on 100 different Excel sheets and copying and pasting data. So I think automation, long story short, is also a source of job satisfaction and job talent retention, think that's often underestimated. And yeah, I mean, having a clear value focus is critical, in a top FP&A organization, and that really means, and we get back to that in the later parts of the presentation, and that really means that the finance function, the FP&A organization, have transformed quite considerably from true finance experts to finance experts with a very strong business understanding, and that allows us to discuss data and business matters, operational and strategic ones, eye to eye with internal and external stakeholders. What's also important, I think, oftentimes the issue is not, having too few data. It's it's rather having too many data. So never let data fool you, or just one data point fool you. View a certain analysis in the context of other data points. And also at the end of the day, we're going to speak about AI and technology in general, but at the end of the day, your business sense and your qualitative assessment will also play a part. All of that, I think, reinforces each other. At the end of the day, we are living in a world of uncertainty, and it's super critical to think in contingencies and options and be quick in adjusting your forecast. And this is not what Excel is doing very well.
Yeah, thanks, Björn. I appreciate that. It's always good to hear it from somebody who's living it. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some emerging skills or skill sets to help support this. So when we think about personal development, when we think about hiring, when we think about how do we as an individual or as a team play into elevating an FP&A organization, or at least equipping ourselves to do this well. So there's an evolution, just like in the FP&A, to more value creative. There's an evolution in the skill sets that are desired from finance professionals. 59% of organizations see analytics expertise is highly sought after, and that's a number that's been growing for a few years now. Technology skills are now a prerequisite. You need to be able to navigate some of the systems and technologies that we're going to talk about. And one thing that's becoming more and more focused upon as we become more consultative with the business is emotional intelligence. And sometimes people use the term EQ there. So being able to relate to people, being able to understand where they're coming from is key. So when you think about how do we, dial in focus to gain some of these things, I think it's helpful to just identify some categories. This is by no means comprehensive. You could use different words and terms, but as people have been talking to finance organizations around the world, we see some trends happening in skill sets. And I've kind of bucketed them up. On the left here, some analytic or more kind of hard skill sets. And on the right, some soft skill sets. And as finance people, maybe you gravitate to the one on the left, maybe not. But they're all highly important to achieve a top performing organization. And so we're going to double click on a few of these. Analysis is the first skill set. This is probably the one that most of you are the most comfortable with. This has traditionally been going on for a long time. So the ability to analyze data, create reports, observations on results. So the budget versus actual or budget versus forecast kind of commentary. Essentially, we're making sure that the company runs well, that it uses its assets well, and we're able to create lots of ad hoc analysis to help executives understand things and make decisions. One thing here is, as we do reach out farther into the business, and Björn, I think, hinted at this a little moment ago, the data sets begin to grow. Some more advanced analytical skills are becoming necessary, and there are lots of different courses and classes that you can take to pick up the skill. But as this is one of the more traditional areas, we won't spend quite as much time talking about it. The next one that's emerging is the FP&A architect or architecture. And so this is the person that helps enhance what IT is doing and make sure that the architecture of IT of the company and in the FP&A department helps move the corporate strategy forward, right? They see the systems, they understand using their biggest business acumen They can take a step back and see the big picture of how all of these pieces of technology fit together. They understand systems, they understand architecture, they understand processes and strategy, and how things interconnect. And what I found often is the folks on your team that are the Excel wizards, or the people who can write macros, or the ones that teach everybody to do if statements, typically have a passion here and are naturally drawn to these types of things. And this is where partnering with IT can pay huge dividends to help look holistically at what the tech stack is in your organization and help influence and make sure that it's cohesive and makes sense. The next skill is data science. And I think this one has grown tremendously over the last 5 or 10 years. It's becoming a highly sought after skill. So data science has been around, for a long, long time, but FP&A specific data science kind of helps bring more business acumen to this very analytical type of process. So the data scientists in FP&A are often using technologies like AI and machine learning, automated connections to both internal and external data to create trends, sometimes using this to automate forecasts and modeling. The term of predictive analytics is wrapped up in this skill set. And one of the other things that they're responsible for is getting the data, cleaning it, organizing it, making sure it's correct and in a format that can be presented and used, right? So when we provide this data to the analytical folks, or if you just use your analytical skill set with the data, these people are going to make a data ecosystem that answers the questions that we need to answer. There are lots of specific skills that can help here. So mathematical skills, statistical skills. Also, we mentioned, machine learning, some technical skills as well. But again, the difference between this and a pure data science person that might, in a large company, work in a data science cost center organization, this person is more business focused and bridging the gap with data and what the business needs to do to reach its goals. The next one, we're going to jump into more EQ skills or personal skills. And this first one is connecting. And again, just when we think about data, how everything kind of flows up into the financial statements, the processes and departments of a business often do too. And if we're doing business partnering well, finance sits in an interesting seat where we can see the holistic activities of lots of different organizations and departments and working together. And it gives us a unique ability to bring people together when it makes sense. Because we can see everything in every department, we understand the business very well, and we have a vantage point that helps us connect the dots for folks. So, we're focused on systems and processes here. But really what's important in connecting is the people, cultures, the geographies, the levels and functions. So understanding when a part of the organization is struggling with something that maybe another part of the organization has figured out, bringing those people together. So it's the idea of helping everyone row in the same direction and bringing the right parts of the business, both from a functional and a people standpoint, together to achieve better results. The next one is influencing, and this one is highly important. We all do this already, probably to some level, but the idea of focusing on it as a skill that you can develop intentionally is becoming important. And one of the things here is first, emotional intelligence. We talked about that. To influence someone, you have to be able to understand them on some level. The other thing is to be able to influence when you don't have authority. So influencing your CEO, for example, is highly important in the finance organization. And so you need to develop techniques. You need to develop internal and external networks to help collaborate and form these relationships. And the idea is to help people get to the right answer. Not necessarily pushing an agenda, but again, the high visibility footprint that we have in finance, seeing the whole business, we can use that to help people come to the right conclusions and influence them to head in the right directions. The last one here is storytelling. And this one is one of my favorite ones. The idea is, often we just talked about data science and architecture and analytics and some heavy topics. How do you take those things and put it out there in a format that people want to hear, that they're excited, that tells the story? So when you think about communication, there's a few parts to communication. There's maybe more than this, but I think of it as what I want to say, what I actually say, And the last link in the chain is what people actually hear. And all of those things need to be aligned to effectively communicate. The storytelling skills help us do that better. Take those complex things, explain them in normal language. You might be talking to a room full of lots of different people. So being able to craft a narrative that resonates with the folks in the room in simple terms, that's inclusive, that helps people participate, that gets people talking, and gets people understanding what you're trying to communicate. Storytelling is becoming more and more important, especially as we partner more with the business. But again, the best data in the world that lives in one person's head isn't being leveraged very well, and storytelling helps here a lot. This is by no means a comprehensive list, but if you think of these as kind of buckets of skill sets that you can intentionally develop, that's kind of the way we think of it. Now, there are probably some large organizations that have even roles specifically for some of these topics, but most organizations, most organizations in FP&A are a little bit smaller. And so what ends up happening is you're going to be a bit of a generalist. So hopefully those skill sets resonated with you and you're like, yeah, I do a little bit of all of that. The idea here is to focus on one or two and get much deeper, right? So we're all going to probably do all 6 of these skill sets and other things as well. But if you're that person that's got a big passion for technology, maybe you dig deep and get some certificates and training and learn more about IT architecture and be that architect and that IT partner. Or maybe you just love to tell jokes and you're a natural storyteller. Well, maybe you're the person that wants to focus and hone that skill even farther to take the business farther, okay? It's important, though, to be deliberate with the frameworks of education, experience, and exposure, which are 3 big ways that we can acquire and enhance these skills. And then, of course, as you're hiring folks, look for the skills during the hiring process. If you've got a skills gap in, I don't know, data science, for example, that might be a skill that you would look for in your next FP&A hire. And so what's important about that is just to be intentional. And this idea of picking these avenues and doubling down and making sure that you're intentionally building skills in the right way, both for your own passions and with what your organization needs. Okay. And with that, Bjorn, I'd love to hear some of your thoughts, on skills and what you look for when you hire folks for your FP&A org, or if this even kind of resonates with what you see, in your day-to-day.
Yeah. And very much depends, of course, on where your company is in terms of development and in terms of, let's say, for the lack of a better proxy, a size of your finance FP&A organization. But I mean, all of those skills are relevant and critical. But of course, in real life, you will not have 10 data scientists, and you will unlikely have a finance IT team, finance architect team of 10 people or so. So, I mean, you have to, of course, build your FP&A organization individually. But it certainly, I mean, analysis is a key pillar, obviously, right? I mean, again, supported by technology, automation, etc. But we need to ensure that data quality is available and that we are able to provide meaningful analyses. And that's by the way, that's something that we get back to in the skill, or say rather in the mindset later on. I mean, that is really the word meaningful analyses. So we have to provide analyses, provide numbers, make sense of those in a meaningful way, of course. I mean, architecture to me is, like, in a nutshell, is really translating your FP&A needs when talking to, for example, traditional IT teams, really bridging the gap between finance and IT, for example. I think connecting is very, very, very critical. And that's one of the, let's say, newer developments in finance. And that is, look beyond the pure numbers, look beyond the pure P&L numbers, look beyond the pure finance. And that includes, again, having people with a dedication for, business matters, a keen interest in that, entrepreneurship, problem solving, really being able to, tackle the most important matters first, and not necessarily from a finance perspective, but from a, let's say, strategic, operational business perspective. This is where really, business operations and strategy meet FP&A. Now, influencing, I mean, as you said, this is not a matter of hierarchy. I mean, if I need to influence people, it doesn't matter whether your job title is CFO or VP finance or senior finance manager or what have you. This is about making, sound arguments. And by the way, this is neither power politics. So influencing people in FP&A does not mean to, again, use your power to derive at conclusions that serve you best. It's about finding the best solution for the company. And again, with analyses at hand, data analytics at hand, try to convince people internally and externally, to go for the route you deem as most accurate. And that means that you need to build credibility. I mean, you were mentioning, of course, convincing my CEO is step one, right? I mean, if I truly believe that we should, go for strategic option A and not strategic option B, I need to convince, of course, my CEO. And that's easier if I have built credibility over time. Like if there is trust in me, but also in my team, in my function. So being able to influence takes time, I would say, yeah. And the same applies to typical situations where, let's say, the sales organization has a different view on what happened in Q2 versus what you see. It's really about being smart about data and not shy away from arguments, right? I think data science, yep. I mean, that is definitely level 2, if you like, but very, very important going forward. Again, depending on how big your organization is, the sooner or later you will need true data scientists. Last but not least, I think storytelling. I mean, what I learned as a young CFO a few years ago was that we should not be weathermen or weatherwomen, right? So nobody cares about whether revenue is up or down. People care about why revenue is up and down and what you're going to do about it. The so what question, the famous one. So again, and that goes back to the connecting skill. Tell stories that explain, data so that people understand it, so that you can influence them. Yeah. And of course, in storytelling, as it is true with any type of communication, I guess it's critical to adjust to your audience, right? I mean, if I talk to my CEO, I know that there is specific knowledge and expertise. If I'm talking to salespeople, I have to adjust my communication and the argument. So, I mean, super exciting development here in the finance function, and yep, that requires new skills.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Björn. That brings us to our next poll question. So feel free to jump on and answer the question: what skills would you like to focus on developing more? So analytical skills, technology and data science skills, or some of the more EQ focused skills like partnering, influencing, connecting, storytelling. Okay, so partnering skills. And Björn, I just to echo what you said, I mean, the ability to connect with people is key. And as you're out there working, and I don't want to influence people answering this question, but I just find that the highest performing finance folks are the ones that can connect with folks, that can understand their pains, understand their motivations. But that same person needs to leverage analytics and technology to even find the time to do it. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the group thinks.
Yeah, I mean, again, convincing people requires you to have better arguments or good arguments. So. And having data and analytics at hand, that will most likely give you strong arguments. So yeah, I mean.
Yeah, cool. All right, I think most people have submitted their answers, so let's take a look. All right, another relatively even split. Some data science technology fans out there, but a strong showing in partnering analytics. Is that what you expected to see, Björn?
Yeah, I mean, it's super interesting that, tech and data science leading the pack here, but then analytics partnering close to 30%. Yeah.
All right. Well, almost as if this was one of those fun choose your own adventure stories, let's talk a little bit about technology and some data things that can help up your game in the CFO work. So how do we leverage new and even really old technologies to unlock some of the capabilities that we're talking about, to give you time as a professional to focus on things like storytelling, to focus on things like connecting. How do we rationalize that? What should you look for when you are thinking about a technology investment? What types of tools are specific to the FP&A org that can help us do all of these things better? And so we're going to dive in and start looking at some buzzwords and some other things, some of which you may have been exposed to before, and maybe some that are new. So let's jump in. First, I like numbers. I'm a finance guy too. So some stats. 58% of organizations use Excel as their main system for planning and forecasting. And Björn and I see that out, in our day-to-day as we talk to customers and the people that we work with to help folks. Excel's a wonderful tool. It's not ever going to go away, I don't think. But sometimes it reaches a point where it creates lots of manual activity. And I think Excel is maybe part of the reason that stat earlier, 12.5% of organizations, only 12.5 can spend more than 40% of their time on value add, right? Because they're cranking out spreadsheets. And I always tell people, you didn't go to finance school to do spreadsheets all day. But we love them. They work. They have a great place in my heart. But there's some more things we can do to up our game and realize that almost a full 60% of folks, that's what they use. And I do want to say in some orgs, that's okay. If it fits your purpose, if you're a certain size, doing certain things, great. One thing that's a little more scary to me, though, is 31% of organizations don't have a single source of data that everyone trusts. So you could be the best storyteller in the world, you can connect a lot of people, but if your numbers are wrong, not going to go super great. So how do we reconcile that? What can we do in the technology stack to overcome that scary number? And then one other thing, 46% of C-suite teams have online access to real-time performance data. That means 54, if I did my math right, percent of folks in the C-suite are looking at old data. Can't self-service find answers, so that's an issue. So when we think about technology and what we want to do with it, we want to think about these 3 bullet points and others to see how we can up our game. So what's our role here? So we talked about the architect and all of those things, but I think as finance we have that business acumen, that business-wide view to make sure that things line up well. Also, we can help IT by bringing that business acumen into their decision-making processes, into their architecture processes. Also, by the way, we build business cases. That's part of what we do. So we can help build business cases and understand the ROI on investments like this, and just advise and help connect the numbers to the activities to the business partners. Okay, so we are an active participant in IT. That role in FP&A is only growing, as we kind of talked about earlier. So let's talk about technology. The core tech stack, as I call it, or some tech that most organizations have, are things like an enterprise resource planning system, or an ERP, a human resources system, a CRM or customer relation management, think Salesforce and things like that. And then many myriad different operational tools, whether it's maintenance tracking tools, asset tracking tools, you name it. There's lots of technology, but they typically all are connected in some form or fashion to the ERP, the CRM, the HR system. And of course, Excel. What list of finance technology would be complete without Excel? That's certainly a core one. What we see in the marketplace, though, is that often these create data silos. Often some of these softwares aren't great at reporting, for example, or creating new data like a plan, or just talking to each other, connecting the human resources information with the ERP and then making a forecast. So in FP&A, there are lots of useful tools and techniques that we can deploy to help here. And we're going to talk about some of those now. So the first, this kind of an overview, we're going to talk about these 5 different areas. So the first one that I want to talk about is a data warehouse or a data lake. And you can think of this as just a big repository that's taking data from lots of those different tech systems and putting it in a place that's rationalized, accessible, able to be used in both other systems, but also in reporting and things like that. And this is where we want to think about that concept of one source of the truth. We want data to be easier to access. We want to break down data silos and get it all in one place. And this is where the data scientist and the architect and your IT folks and everybody can work together to understand a really cohesive and robust data strategy that can live in this data warehouse. The next one is a bit of a techie tool, and maybe these are all things that you guys have seen before, and that's okay. But if you haven't, a vital tool in this world is ETL, or extract, transform, and load capabilities or tools. And what they do is they go out and they touch and reach out all of those different systems, grab the data, can help transform it, and even deposit it in that data warehouse. So think about ETL processes as the glue that brings these systems together. And I know I likened it to breaking down data silos. It actually just builds bridges in between them. But at the same time, it's very important to understand that these tools are out there and to understand their place in your tech stack. These are going to use buzzwords like APIs and FTP sites and different direct database connections to get data out, and they often work bidirectionally. Okay. The next one I want to talk about is AI and machine learning. And I'm just going to read a stat here. 70% of enterprises expect to implement AI over the next 12 months. Now, that's pretty high. And just as somebody who's been in technology a long time, I'll own the fact that machine learning and AI has probably been an overused term over the last 10 years. But if you've been watching the news lately, you can see some really interesting things that are happening, especially in the large language model, like ChatGPT type of space. And we've already personally at Jedox been using some of those things to give a first crack at things like variance analysis, for example, which has been really fun. But for a while now, we've been using AI for things like data preparation, error identification, so finding outliers and not building them into your algorithms. And what's amazing with them is AI can manage vast quantities of data. And when you're looking for AI in your tech stack, and something that we've been able to do at Jedox is being able to reach outside of your organization, because AI is best when it's got lots and lots of data behind it to train it. And your organization, while it may have a lot of data, is just a very small piece of the world's ecosystem of data. And the more that you can have AI reach out and make correlations to things like weather forecasts, GDP growth, and things like that, you can really triangulate the ecosystem into how it impacts your numbers. And AI is really adept at this, and it can do it lightning fast. So that error alert thing that happens when something changes out in the world, you get alerted, you understand how it relates to your organization, and boom, you can go do a scenario plan and react to it. So AI is becoming highly usable. It used to live in giant companies with data science departments. Now it's accessible to finance folks. You can interact with AI now. You can deploy it, you can change it, you can use it. So keep a keen eye there. And it's also a place when you're building skills that is a good idea to learn a little bit more about. I mentioned earlier that the best data ecosystem in the world is pretty useless if no one looks at it, if no one can get to it. So reporting and analytics tools are key. So visualization tools, BI and query tools, even interactive data generation tools. We need to be able to interact with the data, understand it, report on it. I think one of the things here too is being able to do it on your own. You don't want to send a ticket into IT to do a report that's just not efficient at all. Okay, so there's a suite of tools called EPM tools, and these are for performance reporting and analysis. These tools help tremendously in the budgeting forecasting areas where we can automate those things, but also in the compliance areas like financial and legal consolidations, doing automated intercompany eliminations, things like that. And they also provide high levels of workflow and collaboration. Now, there's a lot of different EPM tools out there. Jedox is a platform that would fall under this umbrella. And what I find in the marketplace, in Jedox specifically, they often have components or capabilities rather that we've talked about. So an EPM tool can leverage AI. An EPM tool can have onboard data integration. An EPM tool can do reporting. Not typically a data warehouse per se, even though they can do some of those tasks. But the idea here is a very finance-focused tool that can get reporting automated, can get planning automated, can get communication going in an automated and easy way. And this is how we take that 40% of time spent on value add and make it 60, 80, 90% of our time, because tools like these can come together and automate a lot of what we do in our orgs. So things to look for when you're choosing technology, right? So, we talked about these at really high levels, and there's a reason for that. There's a lot of different people on the call doing different things. So we're hesitant to prescribe, something super specific. But we do this a lot, and things that we've learned that you need to look for when you're purchasing or thinking about these technologies is and I mentioned this earlier, end user self-service and ease of use. If you have a tool that's hard to use, it just sits and collects dust, provides no ROI. People need to be able to use it. You don't want to need to send a ticket into IT to do a report or a dashboard or a graph or a chart. You need to put it in the hands of the folks. And IT has come a long way where low code, easy to use things should be expected and are becoming the norm. So if it's something that looks really difficult to use, double click on that and understand what's going on there. Another probably not heavily talked about point here is vendor innovation and investment. There are some products that have been the same since I started in finance. Wow, I don't even want to tell you. It's going on 20 years now, a little over 20 years. You want to make sure that what you're looking at is growing and evolving, just like your finance organization is, just like the world around us is, because stale software isn't great either. And an older company doesn't mean it's old software. Our organization's been investing a lot over the years to keep an evergreen product, and others are doing the same. And I would say the best of breed softwares have a focus there. So pay attention to that. Your software needs to connect to things. It's no longer okay to have just a black box that doesn't connect to other data sources. It's inefficient, creates data silos. We want high flexibility. But at the end of the day, again, we are finance, FP&A folks, ROI is key. Right? You can have the best software in the world, and if it doesn't pay for itself, then we need to think about that. Now, there's some less tangible numbers involved there as well. Strategic decision making. Not sure how to quantify that sometimes, but the ROI definitely needs to be there. Okay, we blew through that pretty fast, so let's open up our next poll question. We'll just ask, what tools do you use for planning today? So feel free to submit your answers in the session here. So A, mostly Excel, B, EPM tools, C, we use AI and predictive analytics, or D, all of the above. It'd be interesting to see, Bjorn, what do you think is going to win on this one?
Well, I guess I mean D would be a good answer. Would be a safe answer. If Excel would be used quite extensively, that wouldn't surprise me, right? Because again, I mean, as you said, Excel is still there. Excel is helpful, but yeah, especially when it comes to planning and forecasting, certainly has limitations.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, Excel, it's not going away, but there's ways to take it to what's next too. So it's,
exactly.
Even if you want to use it,
integration into tools, right? So that's exactly, I think, what makes the most sense here.
Yeah, right on. All right, let's take a look at the answers. Oh wow, yep, there you go. 71.1% use Excel, and again, totally fine, maybe perfect for you. I would bet though that since 71+% of y'all use Excel, you've experienced some of the limitations, the proliferation of hundreds of spreadsheets that have to get manually aggregated and things like that, and some of the issues that it causes. So that's not surprising to me. All right, let's keep going. We're going to talk about an agile CFO organization. So we talked about skills, we talked about technology, we talked about top performing CFO orgs, FP&A organizations. How do we get there? How do we stay there? What do we want to think about? How do we bring all these pieces together? And I think the first step, as with most things, is create a vision. So let's figure out a strategy so that we can have organizational goals and KPIs that are relevant and make sense. Help identify data streams to support those, to support analytics, to support the communication of performance. We want to use benchmarking. What are other top organizations doing? What are other organizations in other industries doing? What tools are emerging? And then also, how are we just performing internally versus our competition? We need to create relevant reporting structures. It's key to be able to communicate these things. And again, and I can't say this enough, or maybe I've said it too much, so I apologize, but intentionally fostering and develop business partnering, right? It's becoming key, and we're finding that finance organizations, CFO, FP&A organizations are able to really up the game of those around them just because of what they can bring to the table. And this business partnering provides huge benefits. I think another thing is we talked a lot about automation, and I think automation is necessary to achieve these things. It's necessary to unlock capacity, to hone our skills, necessary to unlock time, to provide more business partnering. But automating a poor process doesn't make sense. So we want to think holistically and clearly about processes. They need to be agile. They should be cross-functional. Don't make a process and push it out on the business people that you're partnering with. We want to work through this together. What's key too is all of your processes should include a framework for change. We don't want to have the perfect, there is no perfect process, or if it exists, it's probably only going to exist for a short time because things change really quickly. So we need to build into these things processes for change so that we can react quickly. Consult with operations regularly. What needs to improve? What does value look like to them, right? What's optimal information timing? Is a report every hour just spam versus one that happens every other day at the right cadence? And also give them the ability to get their own information and do some self-service. And when I talk about this, I always just I have this litmus test that I've developed over the years, and it's kind of silly. But when you go to somebody in the operation, somebody out in the field, do they put their head down and say, oh no, I've got to fill out another spreadsheet? Or do they say, oh great, Björn's here, he's going to help me make a great decision, right? And hopefully it's the latter, and that's a really good litmus test to understand how you're doing. We talked a lot about developing skills, so focusing on employee development. This is huge. We are organizations of people. People matter. As much as we talk about AI, I think people are always going to matter in these topics. We should be deliberate about training on the job, in the classroom and via mentorship. These are great vehicles to build our skills, to harness the things we like. I think it's also important to have defined career progression and be open about gaps and skills. If you're having reviews and people are like, you're amazing, you're great, feels really good, but it doesn't help you get better. And so we need to be really clear and really honest about where we want to go and what we need to do to get there. And we need to do that regularly. You know, if you do an annual review, you've missed many opportunities to get better throughout the year. Feedback that happens closer to real time, maybe not real time. You know, maybe sometimes people need to cool down after something happens, but the closer you can get to real time, the more impactful feedback is. Again, when we're hiring, think of these modern skill sets. Let's fill the gaps. And I think the most important one here is the last one, celebrate, right? A lot of times we only talk about it when things go bad. Let's lift people up. Let's get excited when somebody builds a skill, when somebody gets a new data science certificate from, you know, Harvard Online or something. Let's have a party. It's really important to celebrate people's successes. It brings people together as a team and helps people realize that these things matter, because sometimes it's hard to see the full impact of your skills and your development if we don't celebrate it together. We talked a lot about technology. I think you need to have a robust technology strategy. Data systems and integration, that one source of the truth concept that many companies, almost a third of companies don't have, hugely important. We need to have an investment strategy. These things cost, and so we need to reconcile that. Want it to be adaptable. We've talked about self-service, partnering with IT. You get the idea. We had a whole section, so I won't spend too much time here. But I think this last slide and is probably the most important one when we think about what we want to do to be a top performing organization, and its mindset, the partnering mindset, getting out there and putting your arms, probably not physically, but emotionally around the org and being a part of it, being a team player, being there for folks, listening to them, taking ownership. That's not my job is not a phrase that should be in your lexicon anymore. We need to take ownership of the things that are happening in the organization and jump in and help and have a focus on value, right? And value will start to happen naturally with good partnership and ownership. We need to just accept that change is the new stability. The world has been pretty crazy over the last 5 years, and it may calm down, it may not, but businesses need to change. If we're going to get better, that means changing. Just accept change happens. Don't get too stuck in your ways. Appreciate business matters, appreciate the folks, appreciate what they're going through, how hard they work, and also just be curious. Go out there, investigate things, understand things, learn. This helps in both the skill set growth, the business partnering growth, the ownership growth. Curiosity is huge. Björn, I know mindset is a huge, kind of topic for you in your org. We've talked about it before. I'd love to get your thoughts on mindset and some of these other things, if you will, to kind of put this in real life a little bit.
Yeah, I think a proper mindset kind of is the glue of a great FP&A organization, because that's, I guess, what we all share. And it's a way of, how we view the world, if you like, and how we view ourselves and what we want to do and what our ambitions are. So, yeah, I mean, we have used the phrase business partnering a trillion times now, but it is critical. Like again, I mean, this is a kind of an eye-to-eye relationship here. We want to help the company get better, become more valuable. And that means that we need to understand, and that's a mindset matter, we need to understand and we need to want to understand, again, what's going on in the business. And also, as you say, ownership, feeling responsible, not just for the P&L numbers and for the proper planning and the forecasting accuracy, that's all important, but also feel responsible for the so what question and feel responsible, again, for the success of the company. I'm going to give you an example. In the old days, I guess, if the service margin, for example, or take any margin for that matter, if a margin was not meeting expectations, finance would say, hey, we're X percent or percentage points below our budget, please do something because we have an issue here. I mean, these days, it's really, again, supporting operations in this case, understanding the root causes and trying to fix those root causes. And at the end of the day, I mean, you talked about celebrating. I mean, at the end of the day, celebrating joint success and turning around a margin. And, especially when the FP&A function, finance, have contributed to that analysis and, again, making great decisions. So feeling responsible, super critical, going forward, problem-solving attitude. Again, always ask the so what question. I mean, again, numbers, analyses, forecasts will give you tons of data. Always take a step back and say, so what exactly is that data or those data telling me? What can I do with those? And yeah, I mean, we're talking about change, uncertainty. I mean, embrace the change, drive even change. And embrace technology, because at the end of the day, I mean, we are living in a digital age. I mean, again, use technology in finance. They're going to help you do a much better job than we have done so in the past. And last but not least, I think at the end of the day, I mean, the finance function, FP&A, those things have changed dramatically over the last years and decades, for that matter. But I'm super convinced that being an FP&A has never been more fun, and we have never had that much impact in the business and driving the business. So it's exciting times. Great to be in finance.
Awesome, thanks, Björn. All right, everyone, that brings us to our last poll question. Which topic will be the most important to you during your next review? So exploring continuing education and training opportunities, asking to take ownership of new roles and responsibilities, making changes to your current tech stack, or D, outlining requirements for promotion within the organization. So it'd be interesting to see what you guys are excited to talk about in your next review. Hopefully it's not a year away. We talked about that. More consistent feedback's good. Of course, it doesn't always have to be a formal review, right? It's good to chat about these things. All right, we'll give you a minute here to answer this one. Got about half of you in. We could have put what is my raise on here. I think everybody would have clicked that one though, so we left that one out.
I was about to mention that. Where's the E?
Yeah. Yep. All right, almost there. We'll give you guys about another minute. Yeah, I know I'm always interested in continuing education opportunities. That's I'm a pretty curious guy, so that would be my vote.
I mean, depending on the situation, I would probably go for C.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity with C. You know, I think what did this group say? 71.1% use Excel. So, guessing there's some opportunity to take it to the next level, especially from planning and things like that.
Because technology is going to help me do a better job and eventually earn more money, right? I mean, be more successful as a team, individually, as a company. So.
All right. A couple more seconds here. Okay. For time, I think we're going to go ahead and call this one. We only have a few minutes left. So let's take a look. Oh, wow. Pretty evenly split. Yeah. So there you go. Cool. Well, I hope your reviews go well, but that's pretty illuminating about the topics you want. So, all right, let's wrap it up and hopefully have a couple minutes for Q&A. Some key takeaways here. Drive value. Use value as the lens that we look through everything. Are we adding value? And if we're not, let's think really hard about if we should do it or not. Focus on soft analytical skills. Soft skills are becoming more and more important as more and more things get automated. They become even more important because the analytical skills are getting automated more and more. Be deliberate with career development. Focus on automation so that we can achieve higher performance, reclaim some of our time, and just be open. Be open to new tools, be open to new techniques, be open to new relationships in your business. And we hope that some of these topics got your mind going or at least confirmed some beliefs that you had. And we would love to talk to you more about it in the future, but unfortunately right now we are about out of time. So I think now we will open it up to some Q&A, and I think, Adam, if there are any questions in the chat you want to share, we can take those now.
Sure. Thanks so much, Tim, Bjorn. That was a great presentation. Attendees, we would love your feedback, so feel free to fill out the evaluation survey if you're not typing in a question. We did pop it open on your screen for everybody. We really appreciate your feedback. And please use the Q&A windows to send any and all questions. People have been sending them throughout the presentation. And one of the, we've seen a few of these responses from people when you're talking about, selling this to your C-suite. So a lot of times C-suites can be resistant to suggestions backed by data from the finance group. Do you have any recommendations for those of us who are in finance and accounting roles who may seem who aren't really seen as business partners, and they want to kind of be seen as business partners to help drive the conversation forward with what we've been talking about?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I'll take a crack at it. And Bjorn, maybe you want to comment as well. It's a combination of things. You have to have the data to support what you're going after. But I think that connecting and storytelling element that we talked about plays huge dividends here. If you want to convince your CFO or just your business partner of a decision, you need to really understand what that means to them. And I think Bjorn said the so what in a context of digging deeper, but it's also so what in how does this matter to you? And so for a CFO, understanding the ROI, understanding how strategically they're going to get faster or better, these are things they're going to want to hear. From an operations standpoint, hey, your job's going to get easier. You're going to have more time. You get to have dinner with your family. And so I think that emotional part combined with data is really the key there. And Bjorn, I don't know if that resonates with you, but that's kind of what I see out there.
Yeah, it does. And just to add, typically it does take some time, to be honest. I mean, again, you have to build credibility, but you're able to do that over time. Again, if you have the skill set to a large extent, if you have the mindset, and I guess equally importantly, if you have some technology, again, supporting your work.
All right. Well, it looks like we are at the top of the hour, so I just want to thank Tim and Bjorn for sharing their knowledge and expertise with us. We're very appreciative for the time they've made for us and our audience today. It was a great presentation. And we just want to also thank Jedox for sponsoring today's webinar and for all of you and for your participation in today's event. We look forward to spend time again soon when we will enjoy some more Inside Talk.